G'day and welcome to yet another episode of The Next Big Thing. And today I'm thrilled to have a supremely multi-talented guest all the way from New York who's joining us. Well, it's Friday for him, it's Saturday for me, so it's pretty fascinating. And so please welcome the multi-talented actor, musician, composer, majored in musical theater, minor in piano. My God, so multi-talented. Please welcome the amazing Jerome Brooks Jr. Jerome, how are you, mate?
Hello, how are you? I'm pretty good.
It's great. It's great to connect with you. I've enjoyed our FB banter, Facebook banter,
Yeah.
and it's good to sort of, put a face to the name and actually have a conversation with you. So welcome to The Next Big Thing.
And thank you for having me.
No, it really is a pleasure. I am looking forward to understanding the nuts and bolts of your fascinating journey. So, be really ready for some very, interesting conversations, I'm sure. So, how we do this on The Next Big Thing, we get a guest on, and then we like to, break the ice, as they say. And
Okay.
usually I put myself on the spot, and the guest shares two things about themselves. One is fact, and one is fiction, but they don't tell me which one's which. That's for me to figure out. So would you like to go ahead and share two facts about yourself? Two things about yourself, rather, and one is a fact and one is fiction, and you're not going to tell me which one's which.
Okay. So two things about me.
Yes.
All right. So the first one would be that I have done some studio production work with RuPaul, and the second one is I have done some studio production work with Beyonce.
Wow. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to go fact, you've done studio work with Beyonce.
And are you ready for the answer?
Yes.
No.
Not yet. Not yet.
I haven't worked with Beyonce yet.
No, not yet. Let's put a not yet there. So tell me about the fact. When did that studio project come up?
Yes, so I met RuPaul in 2006, and I had a free ticket to go see a musical on Broadway called Hot Feet, and I asked him if he wanted to be my guest, and so he came to my apartment, and we walked because I lived in Times Square for 14 years, and we went. And he asked a lot about what I like to do. And I said, I love writing music for people, and I'm like Prince. And he was like, maybe you can write some music for me. And I told him I did some work in the studio in Manhattan. And he said, well, I'll pay for everything. He was like, but I'll get credit, it'll be my music. He was like, I want you to do some instrumental productions. And so we went to the studio. He paid for everything. I had an engineer, and we created music.
Wow.
And then, we made sure he got the files. And at that time, he said, when you create your first CD, I will write a review for you. And so it was released on CD Baby in 2007.
Wow.
And he wrote the first review. And then at that time, he said his dream was to create a show that was going to be a mix between Project Runway and America's Next Top Model.
Yeah.
Years later, it's RuPaul's Drag Race, and now he has the record for 12 Emmy wins, the most ever.
12, yeah, because I was about to ask. He's won some like crazy amount of Emmys. I even lost count. But yeah, 12 Emmy wins. Is that right?
Yes, and I remember when it was just an idea in his head. And, and this was before he, before he accomplished it. And then it was before I created my first CD, which qualified me to get into the Recording Academy because I produced, engineered the whole thing.
And this was, so you've been with the Recording Academy for how long, Jerome?
Yeah, so I did my CD first project, 10 tracks in 2007. It was R&B based. And then I in the Recording Academy in 2008.
Wow. That is fascinating. So even I have a 2007 project story which I've shared with you, which our common
Mhm.
friend Ricky Cage, who worked on my 2007 project. So it's great to see. So you've been with the Academy since 2008, and I'm sure you would have seen a lot, right, in these 15
Oh my
years.
God. It's changed so much. When it first started, I would always go to the New York event. So I loved to go where we would see the songwriters and the Grammy winners, and they would explain how they wrote their songs. Sometimes it would go to the studio where the mastering or the mixing took place, and it would play what the album sounded like before, and then what it
Yeah.
sounded like after.
Yeah.
And I've met some cream of the crop. And we had New York parties. And so they would have like the viewing parties at places like the Hard Rock Cafe in New York or at like Jay-Z's 4040 Club. And then I think in 2016, I started going to LA,
Right.
to Grammy Awards. I think a
To
mutual friend,
see
Ricky
them.
K, was like, if you all come, I'm having a special party there. And I was like, oh, well, I should go because, I've met
Mm.
in New York. And then something came up when I went to renew after I attended the Grammys in 2019. The Academy would not accept my renewal.
Oh,
And so I was a member for a long time. And I guess this was the whole Me Too movement was going on.
right.
And, they changed the CEO.
Wow.
And so they started screening every member and like whoever was in for a long time,
Right.
they were kind of like, let's just do away with them and
Wow.
re-recruit and bring in new people who are like famous on TikTok and
Right.
Instagram. And
Yeah.
so I was screened out, even though I had released a 20 album CD called
20,
Multi-Genre Music
20
2007.
songs. Yes, 20
Yeah,
songs on the album, right? No, I've heard that.
yes.
Yes, that's fascinating.
And so, I was in the ramifications of having a release within the past 5 years. I've been releasing, soundtracks for musicals.
Yeah.
And so I called and they told me on the phone that they Googled me and I appeared to be more of an actor as
Right.
opposed to a recording artist.
Right.
And so I kept trying to dispute and it wouldn't work. And then they started changing the team and the board for the
Huh.
chapters. And then people that I knew from going to the Grammy Awards,
Yeah.
like Falou from New York,
Yeah.
and uh, she got in contact
Yeah.
with the New York representative, and they advocated on my behalf
Right. So
of
Falu did it.
involvement. Yes, she
Wow.
passed me to Nick Cucci,
Right.
and he sent in everything that I was doing. I had performed in Carnegie Hall,
Yes. I read that.
and
Yes.
so they got me back in 2022.
Wow.
And so it's interesting. And now the whole staff is different. Everybody's
Right.
like younger than me now. But when I started, the people that
Right.
were in charge at the New York office, it's like they were older white people. And now it's like, a lot of Latin and Black
Right.
young, people that recruit and like Lauren Loverdale and and Leah, they've been so nice and kind.
Mm.
And it's just interesting that the change that they're looking for. I was always the youngest one in the room. And,
Wow.
in the Grammys, when I was in there, it was mostly like kind of like rock oriented, like,
Mm. Mm.
my music is more like musical theater.
Mm.
I
Mm.
play at a church in Harlem, and then
Mm.
like I had classical piano was my minor. And so I'm a real musician, and I say that in a way, meaning that real musicians play all kinds of music.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what musicians do. And
Mm.
like I'm be playing at the Cutting Room in New York with a young rock performer that's kind of like a young Lenny Kravitz. He's
Yeah.
in the Recording Academy, and his name is Ricky Prasad Jr.
Right. Okay.
And we're doing like an array of songs, like from cover tunes from Jimi Hendrix to Prince's Purple Rain to Bob Marley. And he even has some songs by Eric Clapton and some of his originals. And so I'm glad to be back in the academy.
Yeah.
And I submitted a project, last year, I did an EP. And so I think there was John Dope, who's from Columbia Records.
Yes.
And he said, what you should do is always release music because nobody can dispute that.
No.
And he said, no matter what you do, whatever qualifications you're looking for, if you're a real musician that likes to record, just keep releasing music. And music will speak for itself. It'll show up.
Yes, yes. That's great advice, because I think that's what's helped me get in, because as I said, when I did my first studio album in 2007, which was produced by the wonderful Ricky Cage, the album did what it did. I went on MTV India and Channel V. It was very hot at that time in India. And then I got sort of, I wear many hats. I got into the whole writing novels, fiction game and things like that. But music was always there, but I did not produce a full-length studio album for a while. It's always singles, just putting stuff out. And then last year we did the album that also got submitted. And then I backed it up by another album this year. So it was like back to back. And then, so then you're like, yep, okay, no, this person is busy. It's doing stuff, and that's all out there for people to consume. So I see the value of that advice. I think that's great advice.
Yes. And another thing that I learned about you is like your real name is different from your artist name. And when I came out in 2007 as an artist, I used Jerome because it was popular. Like, you had like Brandy, Monica, Chris, and I was thinking like, oh, maybe just one name. But when I started doing movies in New York, which is why I came to do Broadway film and TV, my goal was to like produce songs like Babyface when I wasn't on the stage, and to like film and TV in the daytime and Broadway at night. And so, when I joined Equity and SAG, you have to have a name that nobody else has. There was already a Jerome, and there was a Jerome Brooks. And so I had to use Jerome Brooks Jr.
Right. That was your solution to that problem.
So to keep it cohesive, I'm a junior. I decided that I was going to start releasing music because I had started, I submitted a soundtrack from a musical I did some music to that I collaborated with. And on that, I used Jerome Brooks Jr. and I produced for some other artists under Jerome Brooks Jr. And what was happening is my tracks weren't showing up together. So some were coming up as Jerome. And then if somebody else, submitted information, they put Jerome Brooks. And then I was putting Jerome Brooks Jr. And I think Paul Average, I don't know how you say his last name.
I know who Avgerinos.
Yes.
I'm not sure if that's the right way, but
that's exactly the one. But he's had a lot of Grammy events and he's won.
He's won twice at least, I think.
Yes. And he gave me the contact info for people at all artists, I think. And he said you have to get your work to get put together. And all music is what the Grammys use to verify your work. And so he said, if you give them all of the release dates and the websites they can be found on, they can start putting your work together. After I released and submitted last year, I contacted iTunes and Apple Music and Amazon and Spotify and Pandora. And I started the process of syncing Jerome Brooks Jr. with Jerome Brooks. And so it is interesting.
It is. And this whole identity thing is very fascinating because, like you, so my name is Sri Ram Iyer. That's what the name my parents gave me. And as it turns out, half of the mothers in India named their sons that.
My God.
And another half of those sons are all musicians and singers. So, I mean, I'm obviously exaggerating, but the issue was that there were at least 2 or 3 other people with my name, same name,
See,
doing exactly what I was doing. And the confusion was so rampant that I was sitting in for a TV interview, a media interview, and they're introducing me live as the other person. And I don't even know what to do sitting there going, that's not me.
oh no,
So,
what did you do?
well, I had to say that you're going to have to do this Preet again. They're like, but it was live. And I was like, yeah, well, I mumbled, but it was embarrassing for me. And I've even
Because
been,
then you would think, like you say, people research you.
yeah, and they find the other person.
Oh my God.
And it's super weird. And I've been introduced on stage as a winner of a competition that I didn't take part in. And it's a big one. It's like Indian Idol, right? American Idol. And
Yes, yeah.
my namesake has won Indian Idol.
Oh wow. Oh
So
wow.
I got introduced on stage saying, "Here, we have the winner of Indian Idol." And I had to go on stage saying, "Yeah, thank you. But that's not me." Um, so it was super complicated, and it was funny in bits and really tragic in other bits. So I said, okay, I've got to change, and that's where
Oh,
Siyer came up, which uses my names, my
yes.
initials, and it rhymes with desire, with inspire, with fire. So that's kind of
And
what I.
now, is that the name that you use in your 2007 project?
No, so that's an interesting story right there as well, right? So that was just Sri Ram. So that was the album was just Sri Ram. And that was
Your
a
first
cool.
name, kind of how mine was my first name. Yes.
Yeah, it's just first name. I don't even go with last name. I just went Sri Ram. That's the name of the album and the credits. And that was a good 8 years before I changed to Siyer. And so I had to write to the Academy saying that's me.
See,
Yeah,
see.
and that's also me. So please include my credits. And I think my face was on the album cover. So
Okay, so that was good.
so that was good. At least they like, yep, yeah. So they accepted it, obviously, and so it's on the credits on my bio and profile. So that was
And
the
it's
that was the
like the way
Ricky Cage.
technology, that project that he worked on with you.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was the Ricky Cage project. Yeah,
And I think that's what I love about technology. Before you couldn't just Google and have faces of, projects pop up.
yeah,
And so now people used to change their names because they didn't want to be known.
yeah.
But now we're like, hey, we
Yes.
need to connect all of our credits to all of these names.
We do, and it's complicated because I'm still in the process of actually getting it together. Because
Yeah.
on Spotify, my last year's album and this year's album exist as Siyer,
Okay.
and but this one exists because it was under a different music label who finding it really hard to get through. Anyway, well, we'll save that story for some other day. But it's interesting. But at
And
least
they
I'm
put it in as
happy.
something else.
Yeah, so I'm happy that the Recording Academy at least went through my
Yeah.
explanation that look, that is also me. And so yeah, so I'm
It's like
happy.
we went through the same process around the same year.
Indeed,
This is
indeed.
amazing. And there was one that I think maybe like Amazon was saying that it's kind of hard after they put in the serial numbers
Mm,
and everything, because
mm,
then you would have to kind of like re-release it.
mm.
Because some things are already done using Shazam.
Yeah,
And they said, if people really want to follow you and they like your music,
yeah.
they'll find it. They
They'll
said,
find it. They'll find it.
they
They'll
said
find
the way algorithms work and people had aliases, like Garth
it.
Brooks had a few aliases,
Yeah, yeah.
Prince went by a symbol,
Yes,
they said
yeah,
people will find you. So they said it
yeah,
may be a good thing
yeah.
if you have, music with different names,
Yeah. Yes,
because at the end, people will connect them.
they will connect the dots. Yes, I've seen that. So those who are into my music and who consume my stuff,
Yes.
they find a way to consume it, and they're able to separate it. So it's interesting. It's fascinating. So you've been on a similar journey from that perspective. Of course, you've achieved
Mhm.
and done so many other wonderful things. So your passion, yes, sorry, yes, Jerome.
It was just so fun while we're talking about music and names. There was a lady at a church that I played piano for, and she had a birthday party. And
Right.
they played this song called Just Us. And the harmonies were so beautiful. It was these
Oh,
two ladies singing nice harmonies. So I Shazammed it,
oh,
and it said 2 tons of fun. And I was like, oh my God, this song is so nice. And I'm like, what else have they done? And there was not much.
Oh,
And then I researched and saw pictures. Two Tons of Fun were also known as the Weather Girls who made the song It's Raining Men.
wow.
Went by
Wow.
Two Tons of Fun first. And
Wow.
so it was so interesting. Like you said, if people really want to know,
Yes,
like the music, they'll connect the dots.
they'll do that.
I
They'll do that.
wanted to say on that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. No, it is quite interesting, isn't it? I want payback though. I want to win a Grammy, and then I want the other guys to be introduced as Grammy winners when they go perform.
Oh my God, that would be yes. I know what it feels like.
No, anyway, but that's great. That's great to hear. Now, I'm fascinated with, you love acting, you love
Yeah.
music. And for me, when you talked about your career and when you say musical theater, I think that just brings these two things together, does it not?
Yes. And that was my concept. In school before college, it was kind of like, what do I do? I've been playing piano since I was 5, classical piano. My dad wanted me to be a classical pianist. And I loved doing plays in community theater in high school. And so my drama teacher and my band teacher, they said, if you study music theater, you'll get to sing and act. And they said, if you like writing music, maybe you can write musicals.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, New York may be the place for you because you have music and you have theater. And my mom and dad said, you can go to any school in the world except for a school in New York.
Wow. Why?
So they thought it was going to be too busy. At 12 years old, my parents took me to New York for a modeling and talent competition.
Oh, wow.
And it was called IMTA, International Modeling Talent Association Convention. And I entered five categories. It was drama, acting, it was singing, it was modeling, it was TV commercial, and it was runway. And I placed in everything that I entered. But for kids, you had to be in New York for like a summer when you're out of school. And we used all of the money we had. I was born in South Carolina, and we used all of the money to get to New York. And we didn't really have a family to stay with. So it was kind of like he'd have to come to New York when he can afford to come on his own, maybe when he's older.
Wow.
And at that point, I knew that New York is where I wanted to be.
Wow.
And so in high school, my teachers that said you should go to New York, they said, well, the last time you went, you were 12 years old. So we're going to take you to New York to go see The Lion King on Broadway. So in 1998, all of my teachers in South Carolina got together and they took my senior class to see The Lion King because it was a career I wanted to have. And it was the first show I saw on Broadway, the original cast with Heather Headley. And I knew it's where I wanted to live. So I applied for a school that had a music theater major and a piano minor called Shenandoah University Conservatory.
Right.
And it was near the DC area in Virginia, 4 hours from New York, 45 minutes from DC. And basically I would skip school and go audition for Broadway shows.
Wow. Wow.
And like Rent and The Lion King. And they offered me the opportunity to come, but I wouldn't graduate. And so my mom and dad said, you'd be the first person in the family to graduate. And we really think that you should graduate. And after you do that, you could do anything you want.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't leave college. I graduated. And my grandparents all came. Now they're all gone, but they did come to see me graduate, grandparents on both sides. And I do have a degree, and it is something that nobody can take away.
That's right. That's right. So it's fascinating that I had a similar deal with my parents. So I was a very, very reluctant, frustrated, and dare I say, depressed engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So for 4 years, I went through engineering. And after year 3, I told my parents, I mean, it's a slightly different context, but I told my parents, I can't take this anymore, I'm not doing it. And then they struck the deal that you do 1 more year, and then after that, you do whatever you want.
Yes. Right. Because I hear in India, right, a lot of people are doctors and they want to be successful and that's kind of the path.
Yeah. I mean, I was in New Zealand at that time, but
Engineers.
of course, as they say, you can take someone out of India, but you can't take India out of them.
Yes,
So-
you are absolutely right. You are right. This is amazing. And it's because of people that I meet in life and in New York
Mm,
that I started creating musicals. And so I'd say in 2021, the pandemic was going on in New York.
yeah.
To keep us alive, they decided to give 500 New Yorkers $5,000 grants to
Mm,
put on projects
wow.
that had to be completed before October 31st,
Yeah.
2021, because
Yeah.
Broadway was kind of closed down. Everything was up in arms and they wanted to
Mm,
keep us alive and keep creativity going.
mm,
And so I was one of the people that won the $5,000 grant.
fantastic.
And so we had this off-Broadway theater who was going to go by the code of checking vaccine cards in order to get in, and you could only have a certain amount of people show up.
Sure.
And I wrote a musical titled Social Distance, and it was about four New Yorkers quarantining in New York. And
Yeah.
one was like an Indian, doctor,
Yes.
engineer,
Yes.
you know. And then there was one musician who was kind of going through like an eviction. And there was a Asian, a Chinese gamer who was dealing with people calling it the Wuhan, flu and kind of maybe not being as nice. And then there was this kind of like social media person who got famous off of doing like videos and kind of like modeling and dance. And, it's like maybe like a BIPOC, kind of like an Instagram female model.
Yes.
And so I wanted to document what was going on in New York at that time. It was like a sold out production, over 200 people
Yes.
came.
Yes. I see that it did really well, didn't it?
Yes. And so from that, I recently got the opportunity to be paired with a dream collaborator. And my first meeting was yesterday.
Oh,
And the dream collaborator is a gentleman named Joseph Joubert.
righto. Okay.
And he has won many awards
Wow.
on, he's a Broadway conductor. And currently he is the music director, orchestrator for the new Wiz that's coming to Broadway in 2024
Fantastic.
with like Deborah Cox and Wayne Brady and Avery Wilson. And so I met with him and I told him my dream is to do a concept album recording
Yes.
of my musical Committed,
Mm,
which I started working on since 2008. And
wow.
I said, I didn't know about concept albums until I heard Elton John's Aida.
Right. Okay.
And his concept album was before the Broadway show. And the
Right.
concept had Sting, Tina Turner, Janet Jackson, Drew Hill, Boyz II Men, Shania Twain, James Taylor.
The who's
And
who.
oh my God. And what happened is every artist, the Spice Girls, they did a song from the musical, and the musical hadn't gone to Broadway yet. But
Wow.
what happened is when the musical came to Broadway, the performers sang those songs in the style of the artist that did the
That
concept
record.
album.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, so like Tina Turner did Easy as Life, and when Heather Headley performed it, she had that regal diction like Tina.
Yeah.
And then there was a song called "The Gods Love Nubia," and Kelly Price is known as as a gospel singer, and
Uh,
Heather Headley encompassed that, and then Amnerez did "My Dress Is My Strongest Suit," and that was what the Spice Girls did, and it gives that feel. And the father was like a Sting, Lenny Kravitz type of character, and Shania Twain, Amnerez had her song. And I realized if I could have a musical that people knew all the words and all the songs to before they went to go see it on
yeah.
Broadway.
They can sing along in the theater. It'll be a different
My
vibe.
God.
Yeah.
When I went to the Grammys in 2016, what I love is there's no separation of a famous person from you. If you qualify to go to the Grammys, you're just as good as somebody who won a Grammy.
Right.
For instance,
Right.
when you go to the Grammys, they have a televised and a non-televised
Yes.
show.
Yes.
The televised, they only give out 10 awards. Non-televised, they give out like 70 plus
The other
in the
categories.
categories.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you get to sit anywhere you want at the non-televised. So I sat on the front row
Oh,
and you see people get these awards because nobody's going to say, I don't want to come because it's not going to
yeah.
be televised. They're going to
Yeah.
go.
Yes.
And after party, I was standing in line and Paul Schaefer was standing behind me. And he's
Wow.
well for, directing a late night
Yeah.
band. And I said, oh my God, can I take a picture with you? He was like, yes, what do you do? I was like, I'm in New York.
Yeah.
I write musicals.
Yeah.
And he was like, did you know Jesus Christ Superstar was a concept album before it came to Broadway? And I said, oh my God, I had no idea. So basically, my conversation with Joseph Joubert was about producing a concept album for one of my musicals that I've been working on the longest.
Nice.
And we talked about like celebrities, possible producers.
Nice.
And so, like you said, one of my questions that was like a factor of fiction, my dream would be to have one of the artists be Beyonce. I'm dreaming big,
Well,
because
yeah. I mean, why should there be limits, right? I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
And the way musicals go, like there was a show that opened not too long ago called New York, New York. And
Yes.
now it's closing in like 2 days.
Yeah.
And so you never know the path a show is going to take.
Yes.
And I want to maximize what the show is. For example, Here Lies Love just opened, last week, and Fatboy Slim, did the concept album, and he had people on like Tori Amos and Siyer. And so that was like in 2006 or so. So I'm thinking, if I can get the album out with people that I've dreamed of working with,
yes,
then my vision is gonna, come to fruition.
Absolutely.
And if it was to go to Broadway, then the music and the quality would have to live up to what the reduction was.
And it will already, you can the musical will benefit from the success of the concept album, and
yes,
it'll proliferate there. In what category would you? And I'm gonna guess that you have to submit that to the Grammys, right? Once the concept album is done.
And that's what I'm looking for, because we've all been submitting music to the Grammys, and basically what happens is the famous people kind of win.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do a workaround.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, if I can get famous people on my project, then it'll bring a little more notoriety.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When you see all these names on these ballots, you're like, oh my God, there are over 500 people in this category. And you kind of go, who've I heard of? And I usually end up seeing people's names that I know, and I listen, and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know they had a project out.
Wow.
And usually during my listening process for FYCs, I find out about so many artists or songs that I didn't even know were released.
That's interesting, isn't it? So there's an awareness piece. There is an awareness piece. So with respect to the podcast, Jerome, I mean, I would love to keep going. I mean, conversing with you is so natural. It's very easy. But we do like to sort of do it in a sort of a 30-minute thing. So I'm going to ask you the very last question of the podcast, which kind of brings all of this together and your entire career together and your view for the future, really, is what, according to you, is a must-have, and it can be more than one if you really want, the must-have, non-negotiable for someone to be the next big thing. So one must-have or one non-negotiable be the next big thing. What according to you?
According to me, you have to have drive, and you have to be able to do more than one thing. I told my mentor yesterday that I wanted to be like a Black Lin-Manuel, because I love to act, and I've been auditioning to be like Leslie Odom Jr.'s understudy in this new play coming to Broadway called Pearly, Victorious. And I said, I want to be like a Black Lin-Manuel, but Lin, he specializes in hip hop, and my specialty is doing music that's more R&B, soul oriented. But legit, because I have a classical background, so it's going to give you a little jazz, maybe a little gospel, but it's not And I said, I also like to act. Like Lynn was in a lot of his shows in the Heights, and he was in Hamilton. And I said, so I do want to act, but I also create music.
Yeah.
So my dream is to find a way to do both. And
Yes.
I patterned myself after his career because he does more than one thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. And I think you have to have the drive because people will try to put you in a box and they may
Mm.
say, hey, you can't do your TEDx or you can't, have a book and you can't write music but you can. And it
Yes.
makes
Yes.
a whole person. I think that's the reason why I'm getting to talk with you now because
Yeah.
you don't just create music, but you create conversations
Yeah.
that hope inspire people.
Mm, mm. No, thank you. So thank you. That really resonates with me because those would be my two answers as well. So drive and bring more than one thing to the table. And I refuse to get boxed as well. So, when you said that, it really worked well for me because for years, actually, I have doubted myself. I have questioned myself. And the world has often come to me, and, people will meet me in parties going, hey, Sriram, what are you? You need to decide. You need to pick one, okay? Because,
Yeah.
you're confusing the world. And then I would
See,
go, oh my God. But then I've learned now to own that I am all of that. It's
come
all
on.
me. It's all integrated me. And the
Yeah.
world needs to start seeing things differently. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm owning that, saying yeah, it's all me. I wear multiple hats. That's me. I'm comfortable in my own skin.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah. So it really resonated well with me. But look, thank you. I wish you all the best with your concept album. I think that can bring a lot of things together. The next time we do this and you say I worked with Beyonce, and I'll say, yep, fact.
Oh
So,
my God.
so good luck with all of that. Good luck with the whole Grammy journey. And, whenever you submit next, best wishes for that. And enjoy the
Congratulations to you on your submission.
Thank you. Thank you. Enjoy the FYC listening, and hopefully you listen to it again. But yeah, no, thank you so much for making time, and
Yes.
look forward to maybe a part 2 of this conversation.
Yes. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you.